Thank you so much for coming. We'll have a few more people trickling in as it goes along. But my name is Rochelle Scouten. I'm the Development Director at the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We're happy to have you here with us, and we are very happy to be partnering with Bob Margevicius on this presentation. I am just going to stop right here and let Bob take it over. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, so good morning, good afternoon. I'm not sure whether there's any evening people. So I'd like to just thank everybody for participating and being part of this particular event. We're going to talk about sustainability and what's happening with sustainability. I have a little presentation that I'm going to talk through as we look and get a better understanding and knowledge of what sustainability is all about. Before this discussion, before we're starting right now, actually, Rochelle and I were just talking about sustainability and what was happening with it. And, you know, it's interesting for me. I've been speaking on sustainability now in various countries. I did a talk in Taipei just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I also did a talk on sustainability in Europe, in London, last week. And I'm going to be doing a talk in Seattle also on next Thursday at the SAMPE show, which is the composites show in Seattle, Washington. But the interesting thing that I was mentioning to Rochelle is that sustainability really here in the United States has not really, I would just say, come of age. It really hasn't surfaced as a relevant part of how we operate here in the United States and how businesses operate. And I say that in relationship to other countries around the world, and in particular, the European community, where sustainability right now is on the top. It's at the top agenda item on the CEO's list of things to be concerned about now and going forward. And you know, the U.S. will evolve. I'm sure it will become more and more relevant to U.S. and U.S. businesses as time progresses. But I do think it's important at least to understand it, to have a knowledge and have at least a basic framework on what sustainability is, how sustainability impacts, what you can do to ensure that your business is in a sustainable position, and how we can affect and impact climate change. So all of these things, I'm just going to go through them, and there will be time for anybody to ask questions if they have questions at the end, and I'll avail myself to questions on other things as well, should there be any other issues or questions that we have. So let me just switch over to my my little presentation here, if everybody's okay, and I will get started on this. So just give me 1 minute here. Let's see. I gotta make sure show all. Just bear with me a minute. Okay. And just let me know everybody can see my screen.
Yes,
okay.
That's great.
Okay, we're seeing the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, we are talking about sustainability and what sustainability is. So what is sustainability? This is kind of the big question that a lot of people ask, and I deal with this a lot. So sustainability is a pretty simple thing to think about and to understand. And basically, what sustainability is how we are preserving the environment by our actions. So what things that we do that are efforts to preserve the environment. And it's also how we use precious natural resources in our daily lives, our business, and in our industry throughout the world. So that's really what sustainability is all about. And sustainability involves and it dovetails into climate change, it dovetails into other considerations, but really sustainability really is about being a good actor, with the natural resources that we have. So for Specialized, some of you may have seen this, but we've termed it pedaling the planet forward. And there are three dimensions to sustainability. One is wellness, and that's how we treat each other and what things that we do in order to ensure that we're sustainable, and that relates to diversity, inclusion, and how we treat each other. And then sustainability, which is pretty much what we're going to concentrate on, and that's how we treat the planet and what we do with the planet, and technology and what changes that we can see in technology that are going to have an impact overall on the planet and on the environment. So there are three dimensions to sustainability. So I'm going to start out by talking about things that you may or may not hear, but they're going to be important as we talk about sustainability. And the first one is sustainability is actually defined by three dimensions, and we call them scopes. So there's a scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And scope 1, 2, and 3 deal with emissions, things, CO2, that is that we generate from activities that we have, and that CO2 has an impact on climate. So scope 1 are direct emissions from owned operations. And just to make it simple, what that is, so in your business, so things like you own a car that's part of your business. Is that car an electric vehicle, or is that car a fossil fuel gas-powered vehicle? That would be something that's a direct emission from something that you own and that is part of your operations. A scope 2 would be an indirect emission from a purchased utility. And that's something that all of us have, whether it's the electric that we purchase from an electric company, or whether it's gas that we have for our stove or for a hot water heater. So it's an indirect emission from a utility that we purchase outside of something that we have. And the third scope 3, is it's indirect emissions that are generated throughout the organizational value chain. And for us in the bike business, scope 3 would involve everything beyond the operations of our business. So for example, if there's a bike that's being produced overseas in a factory in Taiwan, all of the all of the emissions from that production are considered a scope 3. So it's not something that you have control of. It's indirect and it's part of your value chain, but we call it's upstream. It's upstream. It's not something that you have any direct control over. The only things that you have direct control over are scope 1 and scope 2. And scope 1, you can, as I said, you can choose to drive an EV. For scope 2, you can control and you can conserve energy. You can install solar panels. You can do things that will impact your scope 2 emissions, and your scope 3 are all controlled beyond what you're doing. They're upstream, and they're upstream in the product that you're purchasing. So I'll go through a little bit more about what that is, and this will give you a good understanding of what are scope 1, 2, and 3. So in this little graph that we have here, you can see that there are scope 3 upstream, and scope 3 upstream, again, are products that you purchase upstream from someone else. So it's the production of those products, it's capital goods that were invested in the production, it's fuel and energy, it's waste, it's commuting times and travel, all the result of the production of a product. And scope 2, indirect, as I said, they're purchased electricity, steam, heating, cooling, anything that's a utility that you're purchasing. And then scope 1, as I said, is just direct things that you may have, whether it's owned vehicles or any owned utilities that you may have on site. And scope 3 is broken down also into downstream. And downstream is when you have a product, and let's say you're at a retail location. Once you sell that product, it moves from being a scope 1 or scope 2, which you own, to a downstream scope 3. And the downstream scope 3 involves any transportation. What happens with that when the consumer buys it, and where does it go, and how do they use it? What's the end of life? What's the end of life direction on that product? So that's a downstream aspect of the greenhouse gas emissions. So, and we can talk about this if anybody has any questions after, but scope 1, 2, and 3, 1 and 2 you control. Scope 3 are not something that you control. They are indirect, and they are either upstream or downstream. And I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot of the bike business as we know it. And you can see here from the this little matrix, this little drawing here, that if you take a look at the far right, which is scope 3 upstream, this is the products that we're producing. 72% of your greenhouse gas emissions footprint are scope 3. 72%. So it's a significant part of the overall business is upstream production of products. And if you look just to the left of that is downstream. And in the downstream, you can see there are 3 things there. One is shipping, the cost of transit. 2 is the use of the product, which is 11%. And then there's end of life, which is about 0.9%. And you can see that Scope 1, which is waste from operations or direct emissions from operations or business travel, employee commuting, is actually quite a small percentage. It accumulates to about 2%. And scope 2, which is purchased electricity, is about 1%. So really, the business itself and we are in a business where we are purchasing products that are produced overseas in most instances, and those represent 72%, most significant portion of our greenhouse gas emissions and our sustainability. So, with that in mind, what are some action plans, or what is it that we can do? And these are the 10 commandments. We put these together particularly for the European community. So the 10 commandments on what we can do is the first thing that in an effort to just understand what are your scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions is to manage the data. So, and by that, it means setting up a system to measure and to reduce critical impacts of things like water, any natural resources that you have, biodiversity, or any type of greenhouse gas emission that you have. So if you're running a business, one of the easiest things that you can do is take a look at your electricity bill, take a look at your gas bill for your operation, and just write it down and understand what that is. It's measured in kilowatts per hour, and you can take that number, account for it on a monthly basis, and look at ways to lower that kilowatt hour usage. And it might mean conservation. Do you need to have the lights on all the time? Can you have an automatic switching system? Can you make sure that you're using LED lights instead of fluorescent lights? These are really interesting ways to just save energy and to be more energy efficient, and look at is there renewable energy options available within your community or for your business. And it might mean, can you put in some solar panels? Can you buy an energy pack that Tesla's selling? Is there wind power that's local that perhaps you can purchase? Or even going to your utility company and seeing whether they're selling energy that's being produced using renewable energy. And a lot of utility companies today are actually selling energy and selling electricity that is produced using renewable energy. So, but understand that, and understand what your usage is, and from there do some more research and look and see how you can improve and conserve. Go through and educate yourself and educate your organization on how to be more sustainable, how to be more efficient. What things can you do to change behavior within your organization so people are more efficient, and that they're really conscious of the environment, of the energy that we're using, and the resources that we have. So take some time and explain that, and work with your organization to bring a level of education and understanding about sustainability. And from the energy standpoint, source renewable energy. I mentioned that already. Perhaps it may be available from your local energy source, from the electric company that you're dealing with. And look at your operations and see how you can integrate and conserve energy by changing behaviors. Just when I was in Europe, the hot thing today, just as an interesting aside, so the Europeans are in order to conserve energy and to conserve water, they're professing that people should shut the shower off in between when they are lathering up. They should just shut the water off and only turn it on just to clean the suds off. And it's something that's really foreign to us in America, because I don't think many of us would do that. But the Europeans have really looked at ways to conserve energy and what things they can do to change their behavior. They're also, looking very actively, and for you to look really active on the supply chain and what you're doing, and to make sure that you're holding your suppliers accountable, that they're good actors too. Are they using renewable energy? How are they working and being efficient in the products that they're producing? Are they aggressive? And are they looking at ways to improve and to save greenhouse gas, the carbon footprint on the products that are being produced and the way that they're being transported? And I can say from our side at Specialized, we're now very conscious and very aware of the production, the products, how they're produced, what they're produced with. And we're focused right now on ensuring that the raw materials that our products are made of are being produced using renewable energy, for example, for aluminum, or for carbon fiber. We're looking at green hydrogen for production of carbon fiber. So we're actually very active right now in identifying ways to bring renewable energy into the products that we're producing and to lower our carbon footprint on products that we're producing, which are in our scope 3. Fourth is the circular economy. That's coming, and it's coming really fast. So how can we, as a business and as an industry, how can we look at renewing, reusing, reworking products so that that particular product can be reused, that we don't just it just doesn't get thrown away when there's no longer any when we think that there's no longer any value to it. How can we transition into being much more alert to the circularity of the product? And part and parcel to that is the material consumption. So what happens? Can we rework? Can we recycle? Can we renew products and the packaging that we're out there, that products are coming in and products that we're selling? So what can we do and how can we optimize that? And all of us are working actively to try and build products that really are capable of reworking and recycling and renewing, and packaging that's much more sustainable, so that we are good actors in the business. So, and from our business side, we're looking at eco designs. We're looking at clever ways of creating products that allow the opportunity for repair and reworking and reusing. And take a close look at your supply chain, and where possible, buy locally. Buying locally is really it's a powerful tool for lowering your carbon, your greenhouse gas emissions for upstream and downstream purchases and sales. And this is really become very important, particularly in the European community, where, for example, in the bicycle business, almost 85% of all e-bikes, for example, are assembled locally. And it's a big initiative to have products being produced locally to actually lower the carbon footprint. And from your side, can you bundle orders and shipments to minimize transport costs? So just, small sustainable things that may have make a difference for climate and will be really good for the environment. E-bikes, and this is, something everybody's doing now, but, working on recycling batteries, battery cells, and even e-bikes for transportation and utility purposes. Can you get people to be using e-bikes for transport and for utility purposes? It's an important step. And many of you have heard me say this before, but the European community, they sell over 10 times as many e-bikes as we do in the United States, 10x what we do here in the United States. And people are replacing cars. They're using them for the main mode of transportation and utility. And we in the United States, we've got to start looking at alternate modes of transportation, whether it's e-bikes or whether it's public transportation or whether it's just going by foot. We need to build an environment that's much more sustainable. Look at the number 9 is look at carbon offset projects. So, if you are, for example, if you're in an office and you can't really do a lot with either having renewable energy and you've reached the limit on how you can conserve. So, participate in some of the carbon offset programs. You can purchase carbon offset credits. They go into projects like trees planting and other types of investments that actually are good for the environment, and they are creating more CO2, which is a good thing to do. So think about that from a carbon offset standpoint. And lastly is verify and collaborate with your suppliers on initiating carbon footprint verifications throughout the supply chain, and just know what that is. And we all need to be good actors in sustainability, and we need to really take time, and we need to spend that time working on building sustainable products, building sustainable business, and being in control of the future for this planet and what's happening on this planet for the future. So just a small sequence of steps. So what to do, as I said, I've gone through, some of the details, but, educate and integrate, so first, as I said, develop some ways of measuring your environmental impact. And to begin with that, measuring your greenhouse gas emissions, which you can look at things like utility bills and other things that will give you some measurement of what your environmental impact is. And work with your brands and your community to establish some sustainability goals, including reduction targets. We're specialized, we're in Morgan Hill. I've been working with the community of Morgan Hill, and we're very actively working to try and work on greenhouse gas reduction. And the community, there's now available renewable energy from a variety of sources, and we're offering that to the community for purchase as for electric and for gas. So and it's available, in a lot of communities. And just an interesting aside, in my work with the community of Morgan Hill, even though we've done a lot of work and we have a lot of renewable energy now that's available in the community, the one thing that we really haven't gotten under control is people driving combustion engine vehicles, and it's the single biggest contributor right now to greenhouse gas emissions within our community is people driving. And so we're working actively to try and get the community to put in more electric charging stations, getting people riding bikes or doing other things that will have an impact on the carbon footprint. And take some time and just communicate your progress. Everybody likes to know that they're doing a good job, and particularly the people that are working with you or working for you, and even your community, communicate that and be transparent in your progress. So transform, and this is going to take some time within your organization. So, be really proactive and in your recycling efforts, and be conscious of them, be aware of recycling, and do it in the right way. Try and develop circular models for things. A lot of you may be looking and the secondary market for an e-bike, or a secondary market for a bike, or maybe a secondary market for a helmet. Those circular models are good today, and people are buying them. You can just look at companies like Patagonia that's selling secondhand clothing, and it's an entire business model for Patagonia. And how they work on it, how they repair, how they fix products, so that they're creating that circular environment for products they're selling. And do collaborate with your suppliers to integrate, just responsible sustainability practices. That's going to be important going forward because, again, we all want to be good corporate citizens. And take some earth shots, looks at some strategy long term. So can you in your business and even in your personal life, can you eliminate fossil fuel vehicles? Like, look at that, or look at zero greenhouse gas products. And when you're buying something either personally or the products that you're buying from your suppliers, ask about it, see whether they're produced in zero greenhouse gas environments, see if they're carbon neutral businesses. That's getting more and more important, and it's getting pretty critical in how we operate. Look at integration of zero waste protocols, so ways of doing things, so that there's zero waste in how you operate your business. Yeah, and really take some time, demonstrate circularity. That's going to be important going forward. And do conserve and integrate renewable energy in every aspect of your business and what you do and how you do it. And I think that's going to be really important going forward in how businesses operate. So why does it matter? And I should have started with this, but this has been something that's been championed by a lot of people around the world. And the important thing for everyone to realize is that the world is on track for a 4-degree centigrade temperature change by 2100. And this 4-degree centigrade change would result in a catastrophic global climate impact. And you know, most of you people know that I'm not a young guy, but my my kids and family and people that I really care about, they're the ones who are going to be impacted. And so for all of us, we've got to think not necessarily of ourselves, but we've got to think about the future. And the future is we have the ability to change, and we have the ability to um, provide a better climate and a better environment for our children and for our children's children. And so does it really matter? Yeah, we need to address this climate crisis. All of us need to address it. We need to really actively drive change. The only way it's going to happen is if we believe that it's going to happen. And I say this, some of my people hear me say this much too often. They say, my mother always said to me, that she said, you can tell me and I know, you can teach me and I understand, and if you show me, I believe. And I say that to all of you, do it, show that you believe and make changes in your life and make changes in your business, because that's how people believe. It's not just Bob telling you, it's not me teaching you, it's you doing it. And you doing it is what's going to drive change. And you're going to have to adopt, and you're going to have to adopt and change your values, because in order to make a significant change in this global environment with the climate impacts that we're experiencing, we're going to have to adopt, and we're going to have to change some behaviors. And a lot of you know, when people come in and people talk to you, it's what your customers expect today. They expect you to really be good actors. I've said this to quite a few people, that from the bike industry, we've been blessed, because the product that we're selling is so great for the environment that consumers all think that we are really good at conserving energy and being good actors from the environmental side. And let's prove to them that we are good actors, and that we are really good business people, and really are concerned about the climate crisis, and the global impact. So lastly, it's the right thing to do. And right now is the time when we all can make a difference. So it is the right thing to do, and we should do it. All of us should gather together, and we should make this an initiative that makes a difference for us in the bike business and throughout the industry, because it is the right thing to do. So, what are some things? Start today. It's easy. There's some easy things you can do. Be really proactive in recycling. Look at reclaiming, reusing, reworking materials and components. Where you can integrate renewable energy sources of supply. So there are some easy ways that you can start today. And then from there, look at some of your utility bills, start tracking things, start being proactive with your suppliers, and start asking about it. It's all of us are working on it. I can tell you that, and all of us want to talk about it. So, be part of this movement right now. So that's it for me. Everybody, if there's any questions or any comments or thoughts, I'm happy to entertain them. This is kind of where I can be reached at any time, and I'm always available and always willing to entertain ideas or directions on this subject. So.
Thank you, Bob. It is an important topic, and we are so glad that you brought it to us. So we do have some questions, if it's all right with you, that we can
Yeah,
get right into them.
let's do it.
Perfect. All right. So our first question is, can carbon fiber frames and forks be recycled?
That's a great question. I'm in the process of working on that. The answer to that is yes. And we're in the process of doing it. This is gonna be a long answer to this subject, but so carbon fiber can be recycled, and but what has to happen in carbon fiber when it's recycled is it needs to be ground up into small pieces, which become short fibers or long fibers, and that in turn gets recycled and is used in thermoplastic applications. So for example, if you're driving a BMW, so whoever it is must be driving a BMW, ask the question. BMW does use recycled carbon fiber. It saves weight, and they integrate it into thermoplastic applications for various car parts. For the bike industry, we haven't yet integrated recycled carbon fiber, except in a few limited applications, like fenders is a good example. I've seen it already be used in kickstands and a few other things. And the reason why that we haven't really used it so much for bikes and bike applications is the just the and this may be too technical for people, but like a carbon fiber frame has 65% is natural, we'll call it just virgin carbon fiber, and 35% is resins. And that's what gives it the weight and the strength. And when you integrate thermoplastic and you fold into it carbon fibers, it ends up being 80% resin and only 20% carbon fiber. So the weight is significantly higher, and it's something that we're working on and looking into for applications, potentially, additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing. There's some potential for integrating these short and long carbon fiber in additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and we are integrating things like organic resins and things like that are giving it some sustainability aspects. And I may have mentioned this before, but the carbon fiber itself is, for the most part, the carbon fiber makers in Asia are using renewable energy, or they're using green hydrogen in the production of carbon fiber. So we're starting with a product that's actually produced using renewable energy.
Excellent. We do have some more questions coming in here, so I'll just move right along. How are you progressing with your Scope 3 suppliers? We are making aluminum bikes and struggling to persuade our suppliers to switch to recycled aluminum. How are you getting on with that?
Well, so there's two things to it. What we're pressing for right now is that the aluminum that we are starting with, that we are using aluminum that's produced using renewable energies. And there's a handful of makers, Alcoa is one, Hydro, Rio Tinto are makers of actual aluminum ingot. And that aluminum ingot that's being produced is being produced with renewable energy. The recycled part of it is an interesting aspect to it, and So, and these are, pretty common statistics, but of a bike, and I'll subtract out the carbon fiber side, 85% of the content is aluminum. So, so we have a high aluminum content in any one bike, whether it's a derailleur or whether it's a frame or whether it's seat post or handlebar. So we think that the first starting place is if we can have the raw material produced using renewable energy. That's the first place to go. And then you may have heard this, but of the products that are being produced like a frame, about 37% of the material is scrap. So what we are working with the manufacturers to do is to take that scrap and ensure that it's clean and pure, and reuse that when they are continuing to make the product. And we're pretty alert to that because we really don't want to be using aluminum with a mixture of many different types of aluminum materials that may be recyclable that are in an aluminum ingot. So we're pretty conscious of the content and what that aluminum is being produced with. So with that said, that's the strategy that we're working with on aluminum products. And I've said this to our team and quite a few people that, the bike industry right now, at least as far as many of the components are concerned, we're a pretty mature business. And you have a lot of legacy operations that are producing, whether it's disc brakes, whether it's derailleurs, or whether it's handlebars and stems. And these makers, from my experience in going overseas and watching them, I mean, they're pretty efficient in the way that they do things. And they're aware and they're alert to things like quality, performance, integrity of the product, efficiency, productivity, cost. All of those things enter into the mix. And so we are working with those makers to identify ways to conserve energy in some of these fabrication processes. I don't think that we are going to make some immediate changes where we're going to start seeing products being made using some exotic robots that might save a lot of time, but may compromise the quality or the integrity or the performance or the cost or any of those aspects of it. So we're starting at the ground floor. We're looking at, number one, integration of alloy materials that are made, used renewable energy. And we're going to the factories that are producing things and working with them to improve the efficiency of the production. We're looking at them to identify ways to conserve energies within their operations and try and work with them on integrating renewable energy sources, whether it's solar or whether it's wind power or whether it's hydropower within their operations, so that they too become net zero carbon over some period of time. But it's going to take a long time. I mean, this is a journey. It's not something that we're going to see overnight.
Let's see. Is most of the sustainability initiative related to carbon footprint, or is there also a focus on other dimensions, such as sustainable and responsible workplace practices?
Yeah, there's ESG, right? And there's sustainability. In this particular subject, I've really only addressed the sustainability which relates to product, but sustainability also does involve, governance on how businesses operate, and that they operate responsibly, and also diversity and inclusion, um, and equity in how people are treating one another. And we can address that at a later time, but yes, they are definitely part of the whole sustainability initiatives that are going out. And ESG, that's environment, sustainability, and governments. That's something that's right now top of mind.
This one's a little more specific. You mentioned that bike shops can recycle e-bike batteries. Are you aware of any other things that bike shops might be able to recycle or, implement that they can do now?
But yeah, well, other than packaging for sure is one of the big things that everybody should be working on recycling. Um, and from there, I know that we're working on other initiatives of other products, including including reworking and the circularity of products. But I have to say, and I apologize for this, I'm not super familiar with all the things that can be recycled by a bike shop, other than batteries at this moment, that we have been really proactive in.
Thank you. All right. This next question is, what do you think the cycling industry can do to encourage a change in behavior by the public at large to get out of their cars and onto bikes?
Well, we're working pretty actively. It's a good question, and thanks for asking that. We're working actively, and along with People for Bikes and some of the other industry organizations, on creating incentives. And the e-bike bill, as most of you may have already read, is back. It's going to be proposed, which will offer a 30% credit for e-bike purchases, up to I think it's up to $1,500, and that will be introduced. So we think that one, incentives will be really helpful. Two is infrastructure, and collaborating with individual municipalities and governments locally to try and create a safe places for people to ride. I'm involved myself in an organization where we're actually looking at ways to protect vulnerable road users through technology, where vehicles are able to detect bikes, so that bikes are and riders and walkers and hikers are safe. So again, I hesitate to say it again, but it's a journey. There's a lot of pieces to it. When we get into things like VRUs, there's government regulatory provisions. Automobile companies need to be cooperative and collaborative, and we need to ensure that the products that we're doing are safe. So, in the short answer is, one, incentivize; two, build infrastructure; and three is ensure that there's safety dimensions that are integrated into cars, and lastly, that we in the bike industry, we take safety seriously, and whether it's people riding, we call it just conspicuity, people riding, wearing really bright clothing, tail lights, headlights, anything that's safe and can be detected is going to help improve the safety of the product and give people more confidence. And I think many people have heard me say this many times before, but safety is the number one obstacle that we have. It's not necessarily weather. It's not necessarily any other conditions. It's just people need to feel safe. And we've got to continue to work on that journey of safety through People for Bikes and through industry organizations where we can create safe places for people to ride and really inspire them to ride.
Absolutely agreed. This next one goes back into the manufacturing. Um, it's a comment on the aluminum question that was answered earlier. I agree that manufacturing scrap should go back into production. However, the big emission is still there. Moving to post-consumer recycled aluminum reduces the emissions from 17 kilograms of aluminum to about 2 kilograms of emissions. Surely the whole industry should be working together on this. We have tested 25% post-consumer recycled aluminum, and it is just as strong.
I think that's wonderful. And you know, don't get me wrong, we are doing that. And you know, integrating recycled aluminum, we're doing that now. Let's just say it, we are doing that now, and we're using a lot of recycled aluminum. I think my point in the whole concept of integrating raw materials that are used, that are based on renewable energy to begin with, is we have to start somewhere. We have to know where we're beginning and what the aluminum is that we're buying right now to ensure that it's produced using renewable energy. And then from there, how we recycle it and what we recycle it with is going to be a matter of the integrity and what the performance requirements are of the material. I know for us, from our standpoint, we're very much aware of the integrity of aluminum, particularly in areas of high stress like fork steerers, fork blades, specific areas of the frame where we're actually very specific about the aluminum content and the aluminum construction so that we ensure the safety and the integrity of it. And you know, frankly, we don't want to compromise that integrity. We want to ensure that we're producing it in the best possible way we can, with the best environmental practices as possible, and also that it meets the safety and the quality expectations that the consumer has. So that's been our drive, and it'll continue to be our drive.
Thank you. This does look like the last question, so we're going to get you off right around the hour mark. Thank you. The question is, how much additional cost are brands and/or consumers willing to bear for sustainable products? Are brands or manufacturers willing to accept lower margins for a more sustainable product?
So I'm going to answer that in a different way, because I don't believe that it's going to cost more for sustainable products. It's really not. Sustainability is all about productivity, efficiency, how we manage the energy sources that we have. So the fact that in your home, if you're able to be more efficient and you're able to save 10% or 15% energy, you're going to save 10 or 15% of the cost of that energy that you're using. And the same holds true for products. So right now, all of the energy and the efforts that we're putting into it are really identified as ways to improve the efficiency of how the operation works, and in conjunction with being sustainable. And so those two go hand in hand. And it's a lot like, in the very beginning, when everyone was talking about that to have better quality products is going to cost more money. Well, at the end of the day, having better quality products actually lowers the cost. And I believe that sustainability is pretty much the same, that if we're sustainable, we're doing good things, we're making better products using less energy in a more efficient way, that I don't expect them to cost more. And frankly, I haven't seen that happen yet in my exposure to people within the industry and factories within the industry. So and I'm not saying that it may not happen. I don't really know, but I can say that so far I have not seen it happen. So and I want to thank everybody for contributing, and there were great questions. And I really thank everybody for listening and taking the time and being aware and alert and really wanting to be part of this. So thank you for that.
And thank you so much for your time. And we really appreciate you helping us spread the message with our members. If anybody does have any questions, I know you have your email and contact information on the screen right there, but you can also send it to info@nbda.com and we can get those questions answered for you. So again, really appreciate you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.